straight out of the studios of Ace and the Beard.
For episode 2. We came across this interesting article, and I don't know if you've heard of this Silk Road or this controversy where the supposed mastermind behind the whole site is now being pursued by the law. And this article is just highlighting, how he could potentially go down because who he was associating with it when he supposedly was developing the site in its early stages. It seems like it's plausible that they were working on it together. And, I guess one of the other persons was using the site, which the background on the site is it was like a, quote unquote black market. So you would find the site anonymously and you're able to exchange typically bitcoins for things you can't buy legally or maybe legally, but you just want to be extra private, or if you have issues with internet tracking and all that kind of stuff. And long story short is his someone who knew about the website got busted for buying pot, or I think they're like magic mushrooms. And I'm sure they got, the lawyer teams got together and he had an ultimatum where he knew that he could lessen his sentence. It was said there he like, he's like a software engineer at eBay, he's like 31. I mean, that would ruin his life, obviously, and some side project that they probably thought was cool.
My question is, at least the first thing that comes to my mind is, how do these people go through this and not think that eventually someone would catch on or they would get in trouble for something like this? I mean, just uh, how could it be that easy to just buy drugs over the internet?
Well, the background of it is it's how you're searching the internet. So it's like this whole deep web premise, or you can basically like right now we're using Google Chrome. Well, you can use other web browsers to search the internet anonymously, and there's different methods to where you can kind of hide your footprint. So, I'm sure there's a lot of math and stuff behind it, but essentially you just cover your tracks, and it's a whole system that is based off users, and you get rated and there's credibility associated with people, and so you just find reputable distributors. And I think that they find a method to send it to a location that's not necessarily associated with your home address.
So what, you set up like a PO box or something? I mean, it can't
Yeah,
be
something
like
like,
drop it behind the tree or
yeah.
under a brick or something.
I would assume most of the people were relatively well thought out if they know the methods to be able to, find these sites or go about searching this stuff. I mean, it's I don't want to say mainstream, but a lot of people there's a lot of attention on Bitcoins nowadays. And I know that this was a currency that was used because, it's not monitored by the government and stuff. And that's what was so appealing about it, because kind of disassociates the currency from the government. Because you can imagine if there's an entity where there's this huge market and you're not taxing the money and it's using a US dollar, it would be much more scrutinized than this silly little quote unquote currency, which is not even real. Many people probably would dismiss it at first, but obviously in this community it's very serious. I mean, everyone accepts it. If everyone today said, I think dollar bills and the US dollar is bullshit, then it wouldn't be worth anything. And it's all about the perception of it. So to me, it makes perfect sense all this happening, and I'm not surprised at all about the Bitcoin kind of taking off. It had its little bubble, and I think it's just taking off from here. And it's kind of just the idea of having a decentralized currency, meaning a currency that's not backed by a government. And some people think that that's kind of scary. If you have a community of people who accept it, like why not? I mean, to me, it's a good alternative. In some respects, I mean, I think it will take, many years for people to accept it universally, but there's reputable businesses. I mean, I think Dell accepts Bitcoins. There's many companies that do. If you're web-based, like why not? But I mean, I know some people are opposed to that, and just the idea of even having, quote unquote underground kind of shopping place, but it's kind of a system that's based off reputations. And it seems like, that's pretty valuable. Even like normal websites like Amazon.com and stuff. I mean, if you go to buy something, you're going to look at a bunch of reviews and you're going to see if the seller is reputable and whether they ship your stuff or if it's broken or if it's a piece of junk. Like you find out very quickly. And that's why I think the system can work. I think there's like a lot of growing skepticism of governments in general. It seems even around the world, and this is kind of an answer to the problems that we see. And like it has this interesting idea of mining, where you run computers and you're essentially are trying to solve these math algorithms. It's like virtually mining. You go to the mine, you get gold. It's essentially what that is, but you're just doing it with computing and solving math problems essentially, which is a kind of interesting idea. And that aspect of it is kind of strange to me, why that would be the method of doing it, because it seems like all economies are a lot of based upon the amount of money in the system, You can't just have a static amount. Or, maybe that could be the case where you would have a fixed amount. I guess that makes it more complicated. So they're essentially just making a duplicate of the monetary system that we have now, but it's just exclusively online. That's not backed by any institution or tangible, like metals or something like that.
That might be the only place where it can get messy, just because someone's going to want to get involved and regulate it. At least for me personally, I don't have a problem with it. I've never used it, but I'm assuming that somebody would pay for the bitcoins, and at the end of the day, you have a transaction. One person pays for a good or service, and the other person provides that good or service. You have an exchange, you have a deal. One person's given up what they think that service is worth, and the other person is agreeing to that. They come to a deal, they come to a conclusion, and both parties are happy.
Exactly. I mean, and that's essentially what we do today. Everyone accepts that $10 is $10 and a quarter is a
Mm-hmm.
quarter. To me, it makes no difference. I've had conversations with people about it, and they're just like, "That's the craziest thing I've ever heard." And it's just kind of funny because like technically all of our money's theoretical. I mean, at one point people were trading shells, or there's instances in history where they weren't using paper money, or what it's like denim or something like that.
Right, it's just something of,
Bills,
of value that both parties can agree upon it.
Yeah, and the way that it's enforced, essentially is just because you cannot go to a store and walk out with something without, in one way or another making a transaction. And if we think about it, we're pretty much already doing that with credit cards. I mean, you have a bank number, your checking account, your savings account. We're already basically paperless. It's just what is the institution that's backing it, and is there an institution that is?